And welcome, look at him, he's on the other side of the room. Hello, I'm Russ Kane, that's Ollie Mammon, and welcome to Men's Radio Station. This is one of my favourite hours of the week. In fact, every hour is my favourite hour of the week on this show, but this is really good. I'm the odd one out today because I've seen our guest, and I'm the only one not wearing lumberjack outfit, which is annoying because I've got loads of them, but I thought it'd be different, and I put on this is a hoodie, my mini Schnauzer hoodie. Thank you, which I got from America. No, because I got a mini Schnauzer.
He loves Schnauzer-based clothing.
I do. She's kept me saying this whole time. Now, I got to say that this is. Thank you, everybody, for your fabulous comments during the week. Thank you for being so supportive of this show. Ollie and I were talking for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks before it started, and I thought, is it going to work? And you seem to love it. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Men's Radio Station, it's radio for grown-ups. I think this is a groundbreaking show. I'm so proud to be part of it. And thank you to Ollie for taking me on this journey. I know the journey sounds like I'm about to sing something from X Factor, but I don't mean that. I've gone from knowing nothing to being so much more educated about a subject of which I knew zero in just 17 weeks. Enough from me, over to Ollie.
Welcome to week 18, everybody. The ABC of CBD apparently here to stay. It's been an incredible 18 weeks. Today we actually bring back a guest called Jamie Bartley. Before we do that, we're going to play a quick advert and then we're going to bring you straight into this week's show. Hey everybody.
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Yep, I love that. It's great.
What?
It's a brilliant ad. It's just great. What the heck? Okie doke.
So, am I coming through? Am I clear?
Beautiful. But honestly, it's interesting because you're clearer this week than other weeks.
Perfect. No, I've had a bit of internet problem, guys. So if I do cut out today, I do apologize. So, Jamie Bartley, he was the dude who joined us on episode 4. It was actually quite a broad episode. We discussed, basically, we went head first. We did a head first dive into hemp and the multi-purpose uses of it. Now, 14 weeks later, I kind of had this feeling we kind of did him a disservice, because what happened was we kind of gave a very, very broad episode as opposed to a specific episode. So as opposed to an actual breakdown understanding of how you can actually create these things from hemp, we just discussed all the things that you can create from hemp. So today we want to go into a little bit more detail to kind of, force home that idea a little bit more of we have this wonderful plant with so many more applications than we even know about. And that's the conversation. Now, Jamie's company is called Unite Hemp, okay? His mission statement, I actually wanted to write this down, is to enable the UK industrial hemp supply chain it's to enable the UK industrial hemp supply chain and become the number one go-to business for everything hemp in the UK. Now, that's basically what he's trying to do, and there's no reason he can't do it. His knowledge is formidable. His network is formidable. So I was reading an article which Jamie sent me just before the show, and there was one point in the article which says, when you think of hemp, when you think of cannabis sativa, all right, the one thing you don't think of is, what's it called, biodegradable plastics and renewable carbon-free building materials, and you don't think of rope, and you don't think of paper, and you don't think of bricks, and you don't think of batteries, and you don't think of any of this stuff. What you think of is you think of getting high, and you think maybe nowadays in today's modern world, maybe you think of medicine, but it's still intoxication application, which is kind of what our mind focuses on when we think about this plant. And the general applications of this plant, for the greater good of mankind, are so much more than a medicine. Now, as a medicine, it's a fantastic fantastic array of compounds, but there's still more to it. So that's the aim for today's episode. It's called, the house that was made from hemp, how to build a house from hemp. And that's basically what we're going to try and get into today. From the foundation up, we're going to build a house from hemp today. Theoretically, theoretical construction. Yeah, but that's actually been done.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? When I saw the title of the show, I thought, wow. There you go.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Fat Nick the First, well done. Good evening, guys. Good evening to you. And Veronica Curran. Evening, guys. Oh, Jamie, what a treat. There we go. Okie dokie. Right.
Matey, let's bring on Jamie.
You might as well.
Evening, gents. Good to see you.
Hey, buddy.
How we doing?
Hey, buddy. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much for finding the time. I know how busy you are. You're busier than a busy person, but thank you so much for coming back onto the ABC of CBD. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for following the dress code as well. For some reason, Russ doesn't read the memos that we're all going for a farmer lumberjack theme today.
Casual. I thought it was smart casual, not like old Compton Street lumberjack look. Anyway,
it's we're going for that look. So it's a shame. But next time,
I couldn't come on and talk about hemp without wearing a hemp shirt, obviously. So
exactly. The first thing, textiles. First thing on the list is textiles. No, but listen, it's I really want to get into this concept because I feel like it's an incredible idea. And if we can break it down, I know we've had loads of conversations, Jamie, about the actual uses of hemp and how you would end up actually getting this this material out of it, the process by which you would get it. I mean, this week we had the conversation about batteries and solar panels. I mean, like, it's one of those conversations which we have, but I don't think the average individual understands that within this plant there is so much potential. Now, we designed this episode together, I think Tuesday on the phone, when you were, you dropped the comment of, so you have this wasteland, which you're trying to clean up at the moment. And, you want to grow hemp on this wasteland to clean the land. And that was I was like, oh God, okay, cool. That's the start of the episode. You clear the land and then you build up from there. So let's start with that. Let's start with, you have got some barren land, okay? You can't build on it. It's got contaminated soil, and hemp can save the day and put property on that land. So let's start straight from the beginning. You have this destitute, barren land where if you plant a daffodil, it dies overnight, and if you leave a puppy, it will grow an extra arm or leg.
Don't do that.
Okay, no, I'm just saying we're painting a picture.
Don't do the puppy analogy.
Oh, I just have two really cute wagging tails. Two tails just wagging. It'll be so cute.
No, it's upsetting me now. Come on.
I know, it's upsetting me too. Anyway, so basically, let's design this. How does hemp work to clean up soil? And then we'll start from once we've cleaned up the soil, we'll build the next layer.
Okay, no problem. Well, hemp has got amazing properties, and it's got very, very good abilities to what they call hyperaccumulate heavy metals or contaminants. So that basically means it can absorb far more than most other plants or most other crops. So when you and still successfully grow. So I mean, for instance, it was actually used in Chernobyl. There was a lot of, it's called phytoremediation is the technical term, but it basically means cleaning up using plants. And in Chernobyl, there was a lot of land around Chernobyl that actually used hemp on to pull out radioactively heavy metal contaminants out of the ground. There was also a big research piece done in Italy where there was, I think it's around 50 hectares of unproductive farmland that had been impacted by heavy metal contamination from industrial processes, and it was toxic to grow vegetables or any produce on there for human consumption. So they cultivated hemp on there for 3 seasons, and it pulled all those toxic heavy metals back out to the soils, and then it allowed the soils to go back into agricultural productivity. So the same process. We've got poor quality.
You say 3 cycles quickly. Can you break that down into time for us?
Okay, so that'll be 3 years in Italy.
3 years.
So you'd only be able to grow one crop per season or per year.
And theoretically, what are the other options? As in, like, if you're not going to be using hemp to clean up your soil, what are the other options?
So, I mean, we do work in contaminated land remediation a lot through Unite Waste, and the normal practices would be large plant and equipment going on site, digging up the contamination in essence. So you get all sorts of emissions from all of those, from all the fuel that's used, etc. And then that material will often get loaded onto lorries, taken down the road to the nearest facility that can accept that contaminated material, and then it would get disposed to landfill or treated off-site. So you get an enormous amount of carbon emitted during that process. If we use hemp, all it's doing is just absorbing carbon. So for every hectare of hemp we grow on that land, it's absorbing 15 tons of carbon out of the atmosphere.
But that contaminated land, which is being moved, okay, it's like literally, it's just moving the problem, isn't it? It's not resolving the problem, it's just moving it. And then when it goes to one of these refining plants, as someone who's worked in, you call it construction recycling, is what Unite Construction does, and Unite Recycling is what the group does originally. It recycles construction materials. How much of the stuff do you actually see going to landfill as opposed to actually being recycled?
There's large volumes that will still go to landfill. Treatment technologies have improved over the years, as you'd expect, and more contaminants can now get treated viably, but there's still elements of contaminated material that hemp could phytoremediate viably that still gets disposed of landfill.
Fine, so you've just cleared up the land. Now let's say, so there's two options, either move the problem or fix the problem. So you either move it using trucks or you fix it using hemp. So let's say we fixed it. That's what we've decided to do because we're building a house from hemp. We haven't moved anything. So we've fixed the ground. The ground is now clean. You can build on it without causing your child to be born with 17 eyes, and everyone's happy. Okay, so the analogy is going to keep on coming, Russ. Okay, we're talking about contaminated land. Okay, if we were talking about Indian burial sites, there'll be different analogies. Okay, it's just what's happening. Okay. It's just a flow. Go with it. Don't fight me on this. Don't fight me. So basically, I'll stop. Okay, so you've got the. So now we've cleaned our land. Okay, you've got this hemp which has been growing on there. What do you do with that hemp? Because I assume it's full of contaminants now.
So some of the contaminants would be locked up in different parts of the plant, depending on it's quite complex because the different contaminants will go to the leaves. Some would be in the roots, some would be in the straw. So if we just base it that, okay, the contaminants that we've remediated are actually predominantly in the leaves or the flower. So we'd harvest that hemp and we'd destroy the flower and the leaf. And that process would generally be done through energy production would be a viable option for that material to go into, because it would allow those contaminants to then be condensed and dealt with in a very small condensed format rather than having it spread across all the materials. And then we'll take. So
explain about the energy process. So you would take the residual, this residual plant matter, and actually no. Let's go into that. Let's do that. So you'll take the residual plant matter and you'll turn it into an energy source. So it's not being landfilled, it's not being dumped, it's not being just thrown on the fire and burn away. It's actually being used. So this product which has been used to really clean something is now being used to make something else?
Yes. So for instance, if we take anaerobic digestion as an example. So anaerobic digestion are the domes that you see at the side of the roads, often on farms, etc. And they take in organic materials and they, as the name said, anaerobically digest those and they produce methane. And that methane is then burnt through an engine and that produces power, and then the power can then go into power buildings or back into the national grid. So we'd utilise that as a feedstock for one of those processes, an anaerobic digestion process, which would produce methane, which would then in turn produce power. So that's how we produce the power from there. And that avoids the contaminants then going back into. If we composted the material, for instance, and put the compost back on land, then you're in essence still going to spread that contaminant back on the land as well.
Amazing. I like that. Okay, fine. So now we've got a clean land, okay, and all the rubbish we've extracted from the land, all of the filth, all of the poisons which we've extracted from the land have now not gone back into another piece of land. They've kind of been recycled and returned, and they've turned into gases which will be used in like heating and fuel and whatever. So that's now done. So now we have our clean piece of land. Let's start building our house. Yeah. Okay. So foundations. First thing on our list is the foundations. How do we go about building a strong foundation for our hemp house?
Okay, so foundations would look to do sort of earthwork compaction, and again we could incorporate natural products. So we could stabilise the ground using lime, and then also we could incorporate some hemp in there as an aggregate. We'll go into that in a bit more detail shortly because it goes into some of the other products as well. But in essence, we'd stabilise that ground using lime to enable then have a solid foundation to build up from that point. Fine.
So after that, so I've got two things on my list. All right, what comes next when you're building a house? I'm not a builder, so like this is kind of new for me. So what comes next when you're building a house? Like, is there any way of building a hemp-derived scaffolding?
A hemp dry scaffolding, you could potentially do it making composites. Yes, I mean it's not something that's currently being done. I think obviously traditional scaffolding is metal and wooden planks, but absolutely, I mean the planks, for instance, you can make a hemp wood or a hemp composite that performs exactly the same as any piece of lumber or oak. For instance, is a product that's being made over in the US at the moment, and it is actually called Hemp Oak. It's got all the same structural properties as oak, apart from it's got 20% higher density, which is a benefit when it comes to construction uses. So certainly we could look to make composites for the boards, and potentially you could make composite poles for the structural poles as well.
See, I'm lost here a little bit, and help me out if you could. I understand, because my late dad was a timber importer, so I know a little bit about timber. So I understand oak, it's a tree, it's solid. How do you make something even stronger out of hemp? How does that work?
So the way it works, because hemp fibers, for instance, have got very high tensile strength. So it's the highest natural tensile strength fiber on the planet. So then when you incorporate those fibers in a matrix, if you imagine a carbon fiber lattice that would be put into a material to make
like
give
Formula
it strength.
One, okay.
Exactly that. If you imagine that, then there's a hemp fiber lattice. I'm actually working with a couple of people on this at the moment to replace carbon fiber with hemp fiber in pre-pregnated composites. So you'd replace that carbon fiber with a layer of hemp
more
fiber.
simple words, Jamie. Stop using overcomplicated. We know you're smart. You've got nothing to prove. I'm not
trying to prove anything. So you can take those fibers and replace a carbon fiber with those hemp fibers in any type of composite material, and it would have the same performance criteria and properties.
Wow, it's extraordinary, isn't it? It's extraordinary, and it's taken long enough to use carbon fiber. It's only being used now. It's come out of Formula One. It's going into mainstream motoring, but there we are. Amazing. Okay, I get it.
But the thing is, with carbon fiber, it's not recyclable. This hemp plastic is, which is another thing. It's very important. We before we kind of lose track of this, every material which we create here can then be broken down, pain-free. What's it called? Can be rebroken down by the environment without much. I don't know how to say it. As in, it's renewable.
Too much energy, perhaps.
Yeah, without using too much energy, it's just biodegradable. So it just kind of just goes. It's not a landfiller. It's just back to the earth it goes. So that's another thing you got to bear in mind. It's it's like carbon fiber, but carbon fiber will be here long after we're dead. This will just go straight back into the ground.
Well, it'll be a good one to talk about the insulation on that point, Ollie, because one of the products that would look to process from the hemp straw. So we would take that piece of hemp straw from the field, and then we split that into two fractions, into fibre and into shiv, which is the woody part from inside the straw. And that fibre then we can make a insulation product, so a non-woven insulation product. So if you imagine a roll of loft insulation that would be in your loft, we can make that product using the natural fibres from the hemp. But when we compare that to the rock wool alternative that's probably in most people's buildings at the moment, or glass wool, rock wool, it requires you to mine up rock from the ground using enormous plant equipment, crush and process that using loads of energy, and then heat it up to 1200 degrees Celsius, again using enormous amounts of energy, to turn it into little friable strands, which then form the insulation mat. And at the end of its life cycle, you can only dispose of it to a landfill because it won't biodegrade or it won't break down naturally.
You're changing the landscape of the world, and you can never change it back again. You dig a hole that's so deep you can't refill that up. Whereas you plant a field which grows up, you cut it down. You're not taking anything away that wasn't put there in the first place. It's kind of nice, the idea of using something that we've put there as opposed to using something that was put there before us.
Jamie, could I just go on a slight tangent here, because obviously it's one of your other businesses with Unite and etc. We always hear about the words landfill, and you see images of it on TV. It looks gigantic. You've got the big bulldozer. Are they ever going to run out? Because we're a fine. Let's just deal with the UK. I can't get my head around dealing everywhere else in the world. Just deal with the UK. These landfill sites. I've never been to one, but they look enormous on TV. We're an island. There is finite land available. It's not magically going to grow. So what will happen when it's like? Do they get full? Do they go deeper? I know nothing about this at all.
So no, they can't go deeper, Russ. So they do fill up, and they generally build further cells adjacent to the existing landfill. So they just increase the size of them. There's actually there's a thing called Landfill Tax in the UK that's been increased year on year as a cost to try and decrease the amount of waste going to landfills. What that's actually meant is a bit of, unfortunately, greenwashing, where we've just been exporting a lot of our problematic waste to countries that don't have any legislation in place, like India and some of the southern African countries, and they just open cast landfill it there, which is absolutely criminal. People are living in and around it in slums almost, and a lot of our disposed of recycled waste, as we'll classify it in the UK, ends up being shipped over to places like that. That is starting to get clamped down on now, which is a great thing.
Are we being, this is something, and I've never had the opportunity to talk to an expert before, and I think it's germane to it. Are we being silly? I'm fanatical. I put everything in the right blooming bin, and I won't put anything in the wrong bin. Am I just wasting my time? Honestly.
No, I mean, no, a lot of that is a lot of those clean recyclates, as they call them, which is the home-based recyclates that you're talking about there. Yes, a lot of those will go into recycling. There is issues with a lot of the plastics, though. Certainly that you're seeing a lot of the big supermarkets now trying to get rid of their non-recyclable plastics in their food containers. So they are trying to improve the whole time. And there's a lot to be done, though. Still, I'd say there's still a lot more. They do a bit of recycling, but it's not as good as some people would like to make out. I'd say.
Can I say something very sad? No, it's to add to this before you move on, Russ. Fine. So basically, they're already full. You know what I mean? Like as in, like I'll be honest with you, I'm part of the problem. I'm not part of the solution. And I'm saying this as someone who is as bad as everyone else. I mean, like we and I'm not a Greenpeacer. Do you know what I mean? But fact of the matter is, we have destroyed this world. We have taken it for granted. We have used up so many renewable. We have used up so many non-renewable sources of energy. We have filled landfills to the brim. We have a consumer-based culture, which is just insane. We have fast fashion and throwaway fashion like it's a joke. I mean, like it's not the topic of the show, but as people, we really have let this world down. Do you know what I mean? Like we really have let this world down, and it's sad. And the problem is we're not learning from our mistakes, and we're cutting down rainforests to plant like forests of palm oil, which go into absolutely everything we consume. So therefore we're not even eating food anymore. We're eating starch and palm oil. It's just, the whole world has just gone insane. And to be honest with you, like being able to kind of build without destroying is kind of an incredible concept, because nothing in this world has ever been built without destroying something else. That's what we do as a world, is we destroy something, build something, look at what we've built, and we don't look at what we've destroyed along the way. And it's really, really sad. I mean, it's appalling. And the fact that we can grow a plant and build houses from it, as opposed, and then when we're done with those houses, tear them down, reintroduce them back to nature, and they will just be taken again by nature. The fact that we're not doing that just shows how insane we are and how used we are to leaving a trail of destruction. If that trail of destruction is not there, then I feel like we would be disappointed as people. It's like if you have a success and you can't see the people you've trampled upon to get there, you haven't had a success. I feel like that's ingrained in the human brain now, and I feel like we're destroyed as a combination of nations. We're destroyed. That's just my little rant. Do apologize. Went completely off topic.
Well, that's cheered me up anyway.
Can I go back to building my house now, Russ? Thank you.
One more question. It's because I've never had the opportunity to ask questions like this, and it's all
that's fair.
To the point. When stuff is shoved into the landfill and the bulldozer flattens it off or whatever it is, what sort of time frame, Jamie, are you looking at before? Is that land screwed forever? Does the stuff ever? That's it.
It depends what the wastes are, but a lot of the wastes, so they banned organic wastes into landfill to try and reduce the amount of gas that's produced. So they don't, that's hence why that goes to other places. But a lot of that material in there won't ever break down. For instance, a lot of the plastics won't break down. A lot of those materials that have been made from oil or petrochemical based materials, then they're not going to break down over thousands and thousands and thousands of years down the line. Then potentially, yes. So no, I mean, in essence, they cap them and they'll produce gas for quite a while, which gets piped off and gets used for energy production. But that's it. A lot of the time, they just get landscaped and left there.
Wow. So landscape. They build. Stupid question. I don't know. I'm making this up. They put grass over it, or they shove some trees on. Or what
Yeah.
do they
So
do?
exactly that. A lot of them get opened as sort of country parks eventually, that kind of thing. But they usually have gas infrastructure.
Golf range.
Golf range. Okay. All right.
Kids' playground, on top of the medical waste. Why not? Best place for it. Best place
Let's
for
get
it.
let's get back to the thing. Thank you for that. You've answered a lot of stuff which has always been rattling around in my head, and I've never been able to ask anybody.
No problem.
By the way, summertime, we'll meet at one of the landfills and we'll have a little picnic by the toxic waste. Okay? It'll be fun, guys. It'll be fun.
Absolutely stink.
Sometimes I worry about Ollie more than other weeks. This week I'm worrying.
So Russ.
Picnic by a landfill.
Well, I don't know. It's the topic we went on to.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's get back
To the show.
back to the show after a word from the sponsors. So, Jamie, right, we've got the foundation. We've possibly got the planking, which was a great point. I never even thought about that. The planking to use on the scaffolding. What next? And we've got also the insulation, which is, do you know what? I'm so stupid, and I make no bones about it. I never knew what insulation was made from. Not a clue. I bet most people have no idea. And I didn't realize you couldn't recycle it. And once you built it. That's it. Done.
Because, I also had no idea. I always assumed that bricks got recycled. Yeah, you take a brick, you bring it back to the brick factory, they put it back into the machine, they crush it up, they make a new brick. Do you know what I mean? I just assumed it was like cement. You add more water to it, make it wet again, reuse the cement. It's like logical. It's just no.
Kind of use bricks. What do I know? Lucky if
Anyway.
I understand. So, all right. Okay. So we've got up to that point.
So we've got the foundation and the scaffolding. How to build a brick. How would you build a hemp brick?
So the hemp brick, so once we've split that straw into the fibre and the shivs, you take the shivs, the little wood chips, and then you combine those with lime, usually binders of different complexities, but lime.
When you say lime the fruit or lime the stone?
No, lime the stone. So natural quick lime that's been extracted, and that's a natural binder. It also means that the hempcrete is then fireproof as well. So it's fully fire resistant. There's videos that you can hold a blue flame on a hempcrete block for an hour and it will hardly make a dent on it. So I mean, it's great as far as fire retardancy, but it's also a very good insulator as well. It's a really good absorbent insulator property, so it can absorb moisture from the air and then it can expel that moisture back into back out without having any problems around its shape or form.
So this is what I read in your article, which you sent me yesterday, was the fact that they noticed where this house which Hemp built, it does actually exist. They built 30 houses and 2 of them were built out of hemp-based materials, and they ran it to see a a comparison in the building materials. Now they noticed there was like 80% or 20%, one of the two, less moisture in the atmosphere of the house. Yeah. And they noticed that the house breathed more, which therefore meant that it was warmer because it just, I don't know what the tech was, but they breathed more, so it was warmer, less stale air, and also it was more acoustically it was more acoustically sound. So if you're sounded better, less noise from the road and stuff, which was just it's incredible.
Noise pollution. It's better insulated. A couple of interesting points from the listeners all over the world. This is from Ruthie Siegel, who I happen to know lives in France, who's saying very interesting.
Bonjour.
Ça va? Yeah.
Bonjour.
And from Nick Lynn, I have no idea where Nick Lynn lives. It could be in France. It could be in Peckham. Who knows? Is the manufacturing of hemp products energy intensive? Can it power itself?
Amazing question.
So, no, I mean, it absolutely can power itself. I mean, we've already touched on how we can produce power using anaerobic digestion from the flower and the leaves. but you could also put the whole hemp straw into anaerobic digestion. Another option is that you can produce hydrogen from the hemp as well, or bioethanol, and then use bioethanol as a fuel to produce the power. So there are a few different fuels that we could produce from the hemp, and then you could power the facility to make those different products. You'd obviously need a certain amount of manufacturing power to be able to produce an insulation product or a block. But then when you look at what they call an LCA, a life cycle analysis, when you look at the whole amount of power and carbon used from the start to the finish when you're using hemp, which includes the growing of the hemp and all the carbon that's absorbed, and then the processing, which actually emits some carbon, obviously, because it's using power. But it's phenomenal, the difference when you look at that whole cycle against the alternative products that hemp would be replacing.
Also, if you look at the carbon footprint of the product, which is grown here and made here, as opposed to a product that's mined, manufactured and transported, you've probably got a hell of a lot more, call it carbon, that's it. You've got the carbon trail behind it. It is far greater. I mean, it's just there. I mean, and also in theoretically, if you were to be producing, all of these hemp-based building materials, you can do it from a recycled hemp plant. It doesn't even need to be from a hemp plant which is grown for that purpose. Let's say the remaining hemp left over from the CBD industry, everything which isn't used in the production of CBD can theoretically still go to build this house. So it's not a specific crop, it's any crop, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Ollie.
Which is incredible.
Now, Jamie, everything in life, really, it comes down to A, money, and B, a question of scale. It's the scalability of it all. I'm loving what you're saying. I find it absolutely fascinating. But if you were to do a housing estate, just deal with the UK for the minute, because we can't think wider than that for the moment. Is it actually feasible? Is it actually feasible to say, I'm going to build a new housing estate and it's all going to be made from hemp?
Yes, absolutely, Russ. I mean, we're actually working on a project at the moment, which is going to be doing exactly that as a demonstrator to roll out a hemp housing estate. In essence, there are previous developments. There's some people who've worked with hemp construction in the UK for 15, 20 years. There's a chap I'm working very closely with called Alex Sparrow. He's written books on hempcrete. He's sort of a global consultant on different projects, but it's been done on a very individual house basis. So self-builds or self-designed, those type of projects. What me and Alex are working on with the rest of our team is to really bring it to a scale production, which also then allows mass adoption by the big house builders, the Persimmons, the David Wilson Homes, and for them to really look at it as a viable option, we need to have that volume of it available. So our processing plant that we're looking to close the funding into will have the capacity to process 25 tons a day of hemp straw, and then that would allow 5,000 acres of hemp to be grown per year as a feedstock for it. But that would also produce 1 million hempcrete blocks a year. So
how big's a hempcrete block? The same size as a brick, or the same size as a breeze block?
Breeze block sort of dimensions, yeah.
Oh,
nice.
That's big.
Yeah,
that's big. Okay.
Bigger than a brick.
But it comes back to why hemp's so good, is because it produces 4 times the biomass that a forest would in its same period of growth. So where people are using timber for timber frames or for the scaffold boards, you could actually produce 4 times the biomass or need 4 times less area to produce the same amount of material.
When you say biomass, forgive me, I'm just acting as every man here. What does that mean?
So that's just a generalized term for the straw. So the stuff that we grow from the hemp, or
right.
if you're talking about a tree, the timber that you could grow from a tree, it's the same principle. That would be biomass, one and the same.
So it's like biological mass. So like the biological mass, so if you have a harvest, which is a 4-ton harvest, you have a biological mass of 4 tons from that harvest.
Okay, got it.
I like sounding smart.
Yeah.
It's fun. So much fun. So Jamie, you're stealing the show today. Let's carry on with this house. So we've got beautiful foundation holding up this fantastic structure of soundproof, insulated, energy efficient bricks, which are now, what do these bricks look like, by the way? Do they look like normal bricks, or do they look strange and green?
No, they look similar to a breeze block. It's got a coarser grain to it because of the hemp shift, slightly coarser than the aggregates used in breeze blocks. But if you think a coarse breeze block, you're not far off that.
Can you go for any color you want? As in, just ask. I'm just saying, like someone building a house, they're not going to want to build it my color. They're going to want to build it. Like in theory, could a hemp brick be any color they want it to be, or is it only one color?
In theory, yes. If you put a coloured dye in with the binders and with the mix, then yes, you could colour it. You'd normally also render the outside of the wall, so you'd put a lime render on the wall, which again is a hemp lime render, so you could colour that rather than the block, which would probably be a more sensible way, and then you'd have a coloured render on the outside of the house. I mean, just on the hempcrete, it's probably worth mentioning, other than the properties you've just listed there, Ollie, it's also antimicrobial as well, naturally. So it will passively clean the air in the house and clean it up. So again, that's another big positivity for human health and keeping people warm and cleaning the air that they're breathing.
Yeah.
Especially
It's incredible. It's incredible.
What gets me about this conversation, and I'm sitting here like agog, is why is this not more widely known? I know somebody like Nick Lynn, who I don't know, but clearly is very passionate about this, and Mary Jane Podmore and other people are passionate about it. But I've never heard any of this stuff before. It's quite extraordinary.
Well, we mentioned it in the first episode, which Jamie came on. So in
No,
episode 4, prohibition.
I don't mean
No, we talked about
radio
prohibition,
program.
and we talked about prohibition. We talked about how over the last 70, 80 years, the discussion of hemp has kind of been pushed under the rug, you could say. The use of cannabis as a medicine, the use of hemp as agriculture. You know, I'm sure I'm gonna spark Jamie off here, but I mean, you look at the way Ford first designed his cars. He designed them to run on hemp biofuel, and I'm pretty sure he used hemp in other places around his vehicle as well. I mean, like, he was very, very pro it. Then you've got the, what's it called? The mass distribution of the petrol powered car, and you've got the tobacco industry, and then you've got the textiles industry, and you've got basically the pharmaceutical industry, and every industry in the world which basically wants to see this one plant disappear because of the vast applications of it. So then for 70 years everything's swiped under the rug, and no one knows about it, because what happens when everything's under the rug? It's kept there. And then slowly but surely research comes out, and in France in the 1990s they did a bit of research and they brought out the first hempcrete block. And then in the UK in the early 90s they legalized farming for hemp in very, very, very small, for very small reasons, and slowly but surely started to grow up again. But I mean, the market was held under the rug for so many years. It was just held at bay. It was strangled.
Now, Jamie, that's interesting. I nearly said Jamie Oliver. That's so weird. I suddenly realised what I was about to do. Jamie Oliver.
You should be so lucky.
Lee Durnford is a regular listener to Men's Radio Station. I've had the pleasure of meeting Lee. And Lee works for an enormous company. They've got, I think, was it 15,500 employees. They're huge in construction. They're huge in design. I'm not going to name the company, but it's massive. And he says this is very interesting. Where have hemp blocks been used?
Okay, so I mean, there's some projects, like I say, there's individual house builds around the UK and globally they've been used, but it's also been used in larger scale projects as I'm not sure if it's a Waitrose or a Marks and Spencer's up in the northwest that was used in the construction of, and also the brewery, the Adnams Brewery, over in Suffolk. That's also got a lot of hempcrete, so that was used in a commercial application there. So it has been used in UK construction, but only on a fairly small scale. And one of the biggest problems is the volume of production and having enough of it available to then be adopted, which is why we're trying to get the large processing and manufacturing plant underway.
Well, I'll tell you something, Jamie. Of all the people that, if I could ever introduce you to anybody, Lee Durnford, who you can see on the right-hand side on your messages, he is the fellow to get in touch with.
We want a percentage, Jamie, if it comes through. Do not think of your friend. Do not forget about us at ABC of CBD. Okay, don't forget about us. All right. We take checks, cash, gold, Bitcoin,
If I
I'll
tell
never
you,
forget that, you guys
I'm
don't
going
worry
to put
about
this into perspective, and I'm
dog
not,
jumpers.
I'm not blowing up Lee's trumpet, but I said, "Oh, I've never heard of your company. What did he?" He said, "Have you ever heard of the Channel Tunnel?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we did that." Okay, that's big enough for me. This is so interesting, Ollie. The effect that you, not me, I'm just the passenger, but you, Ollie, are having. This is a game from France, Ruthie Siegel, and I'm not sure if I put her in touch with you. I may have done, or maybe I'm imagining it. I gave CBD oil, beg your pardon, present tense, CBD oil to my 17-year-old dog, and she's more mobile and in less pain.
C'est magnifique, Ruti.
She's English, it's fine.
Magnifique.
It's great. That's so interesting, isn't it? It's so interesting. You know, it's a kind of, you got to win this little battle, this campaign. It's like one person at a time, and that person tells two people, and that's how I'm convinced.
It's the game, isn't it?
That's how it works. You get people like Jamie Bartley on, who talk so eloquently and intelligently and articulately about this, and you think, this is not some bunch of stoners sitting in Camden Town wasting their time. This is fascinating stuff, and it's the future. It really is part of the future. That's what's so interesting for me. So
Jamie, I want to touch on something which Russ touched upon. I just wanted to discuss. So theoretically, let's say bricks as we know them, the supply chain wasn't there. All right, so that whole idea of you can go and buy a brick for £3.99 and buy as many as you want, and they are off the shelf at that price. And you had to go out there and build one or build the other one. Okay, what is a more cost-effective option? Do you understand what I mean? Because that we haven't actually discussed. We understand that it's feasible and that it is cost-effective and you could build it. But theoretically, we live in a world where bricks don't exist and we have to pick one, and price is the option. Just if we lose this experiment, it's fine. I'm just curious. I'm curious as to what the actual price behind a hemp brick is and what the actual price behind a real brick, a stone brick is. If you know that, it'll be incredible content.
very interesting.
I think, in essence, if we talk about an actual building envelope, if you like, so per meter cube, that's probably a more comparable way to do it. And certainly, if it's produced on the scales that we're looking to do, so 25 tons a day of processing capacity, then the hempcrete block would be, or the meter cubed of hempcrete wall would be cost comparable to a meter cube of a brick wall, because it's been done on the right scale. At the moment, there isn't enough scale production, and therefore cost efficiencies in those fibre and shiv parts that allow it to be cost comparable in mass construction. As soon as we've got these scale facilities, we're looking to build 9 facilities around the UK, all at the same sort of scale, as well as some other international projects. Then we really are going to be in a position to enable all these house builders that are looking for their sustainable alternatives and allow them to decarbonise their own businesses and construction sectors.
Could you build high rises with this? I'm not talking about the Empire State Building, but something reasonably modest.
Yeah, so certainly there's a project we were discussing, myself and Alex actually, Sparrow I mentioned earlier, we're discussing a project that's 7 stories high in central London. It's actually a block. It's a block rather than an individual building. So absolutely, I mean, there's viability, and there's further work as well being done, Ross. We're continually looking to improve and further develop the construction materials so they can be utilised for high-rise buildings. We're doing some work on cladding at the moment as well to assist with cladding remediation. It's obviously quite a hot topic at the moment since Grenfell. So again, we're looking at ways that we can incorporate a bio-based natural alternative.
I hadn't even thought of that. Now, my comments earlier about which I addressed to Lee Durnford, and he's come back with this. I think you're going to be quite happy. It's a bit too big to put on the screen, so forgive me. I'm going to read it out. I'm just saying to our producer, Sinner, who's doing all this magic behind the screens there. Lee's saying this sounds like a very sustainable product, which has to be good for the environment. Okay, carbon neutral is the way to go for the government. Maybe contact Mr. Ray O'Rourke, as he may well assist in providing the manufacturing plant. Hello. I will, in the meantime,
10%. 10%. We'll take 5 each. 10%. No, seriously, it's fine. It's fine. 3%. Fine.
I'm thinking 50. Maybe.
Don't be mean, Russ.
I'm not. I'm just trying to look after you. I will, in the meantime, see whether we are looking at it at mock Mott McDonald. That's the name of Lee Durford's
Okay,
company.
yeah, I
Huge.
know Mott McDonald's. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. Price is the key, though. So Oliver has hit the nail on the head for contractors to take it on as a viable material. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that would be the most, for a little radio station, that would be the most extraordinary result. And how exciting. How
That'd
exciting.
be incredible. I was even saying to Jamie yesterday that he's going to do such wonderful things. I can see it and I can feel it. I mean, like literally, I've thrown it out to the universe. If this boomerang's come back already, I want to say I'm a believer.
Oh, and by the way, back from Lee Durnford for a second, Ray O'Rourke owns... God damn.
Yeah, Lego Rock.
Oh,
Yeah, massive construction company.
It's a bit like saying, I wish I could get someone good to teach me to drive. And they go, oh, actually, I know Lewis Hamilton is available Thursdays. I mean, Lee, thank you. You're a genius.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lee. I'll definitely reach out to Lee as well after this show.
Thank you very much, Lee, for taking care of our boy. Can I ask you a quick question? Just very quickly. Fine. So you've, like, because we threw this out there, and before people start having this idea of a house that's biodegradable, I want to kind of get back into that. All right. Yep. So the house is biodegradable, but the house will not degrade. Okay. It's very important. Because maybe no one's been thinking of this, but I mean, we mentioned this whole fact that all these building materials are biodegradable. You're not going to get rained on and disappear. Okay. It's very important. That's right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They will biodegrade in the right environmental settings.
Why? Do you know, I'd never thought of that, Ollie. Jamie, why is that? So what would you have to do to make it, I mean, in broad brushstrokes, don't go into every chemical.
So if you imagine composting, so composting has an amount of moisture. It has amount of biological activity, microbes that are in there, and it has an amount of oxygen and air in there. And those combined effects on, say, a hempcrete block would then compost and break down the natural binder and the hemp, and you'd end up with a composted material that you could then spread back on the land as a natural fertilizer, for instance. So it's about putting it into the right environmental setting to then degrade it. And it's the same for hemp plastics. Hemp plastics in normal conditions won't degrade, but then put them into the right specific setting and they will then break down and degrade.
I get it. Right, thank you. Great.
So,
point,
like,
I'd never even thought of it. Well done.
Like all builders, we've gone way over schedule. Okay, so I've got maybe 13 minutes left to build the rest of this house, which sounds like every building job ever, which is pretty exciting. Okay, sorry, I'm really excited today. Very excited.
Yes, we can.
I tell you what, look, I've loved every episode recently, but they've been heavy. Do you know what I mean? The stories we've been telling recently have been really heavy, and it's quite nice to kind of have something a little bit lighthearted. Do you know what I mean?
Ollie, those stories so need to be told. They are
a million percent,
and they're amazing stories.
A million. It's just, but as I'm saying, it's quite nice to actually be able to be a bit silly today and not really offend anyone because this topic's not serious. It's kind of fun. I'm having a good time. Anyway, so basically, we built the house, we've got the foundation, we've got the walls, plastering. All right, because who wants bare brick everywhere unless you're in a Shoreditch loft? Do you know what I mean? So, how do you do the plastering? How can I make my house look pretty?
So during the process of separating the fibre and the shiv, you actually produce around 10% dust, give or take. That dust, then, if you mix it up with lime, you've got a perfect internal lime plaster, in essence, or hemp lime plaster.
Once again, lime the stone, not lime the lime. Okay, fine. So we're not making cocktails here and plastering them on the... Okay, cool.
No. Keep your mojitos on.
It's not like a tequila shot, all right? It's not a little bit of salt, a little bit of hemp, a little bit of lime, bam, yeah.
Squeeze a little bit. Yeah, great.
So it makes it all look pretty. Question: hemp paint possible? Hemp-based paints.
Yes. So I think you could look at things like, so for instance, the hemp seed oil. Most paints are oil-based, or were traditionally oil-based. Not so much these days. So the hemp seed could be used potentially. The oil from the hemp seed could be used, and then you'd need to get your natural dye from something other than hemp. Unless you wanted to take out the chlorophyll, potentially.
Crush some beetles or some blueberries.
Have it green coloured would be an option, but other than that, you'd need to incorporate a natural dye. But yes, the base for a paint, an oil-based paint, could be derived from hemp seed oil with some refining.
Amazing. So we've got our structure. We've got my roof. I haven't got a roof. How do I build my roof?
So
You've left me without a roof, goddammit. What sort of builder are you? I didn't even write it down. I've literally built my house without a roof. How mental is that? I don't have a roof on my house. I'm just mental. Okay, fine. So I need a roof. It's last minute. We kind of screwed up. I didn't order the bits. What can we use left over from our grow and your facility in order to build me a roof?
So again, pressing composite tiles. So the composites we talked about before with the fibre and combining those with binders. You combine the fibres and a binder to make a composite roof tile in essence. And then
so will it be more like a hemp plastic or will it be more like a brick?
It'll be more like a hemp plastic.
Fine. And then using the same sort of tech, we can make our gutterings?
Yes, so we'd use a similar composite form and method that you'd use for your scaffold poles to make any sort of tubular composites.
Amazing. Now let's move on to the house. We've got our roof now, okay? That's well insulated as well because that's all done. I assume any of the timber work inside you can do once again using this reconstructed hemp wood thing which we build, so that's fine. And we'll be doing the same thing for the flooring. You could, like you said, the hemp oak which they're developing out in Canada at the moment, we can bring that to the UK or an equivalent of that derivative and bring that over. Carpet. I really like carpet. Don't just want wooden floor.
No.
Do I have to go for something which is
carpet right?
Do I have to go to carpet right, or can you help me out, Mr. Hempman?
No, I mean, hemp textile would easily be turned into a very durable carpet. So you'd go through a normal carpet manufacturing process that you would with any other sort of natural fibre or man-made fibres, but you'd use the hemp fibre to produce a textile, and that could be a coarse carpet. It could be, I mean, some of the hemp textiles they produce now are equivalent to silk. So I mean, you could have.
I was about to say, because around 5 years ago, there was a turning point. Because 5 years ago, hemp clothing was pretty rigid, pretty rough. It lasted forever, and after 17 washes, it became quite nice. But I mean, it was just that sort of, the first year and a half that you wear it, you didn't really get much enjoyment from owning that piece of clothing. Now, I know hemp clothing has or hemp textiles has gone a long way, and they're creating some incredible wearable, usable, breathable fabrics, which are actually very comfortable for the end user. Now, they also produce thicker fabrics, so things like a couch covering, or let's say if you wanted to make a dog's bed. So it's both spectrum. So absolutely, like the spectrum of application for a hemp-based textile is like any other textile now, right?
Yes.
It's like a nylon. You can make anything.
Yes, so they've got the improvement was it's the process that they've now improved, and it's called cottonization of the fibre, and that basically means the natural binder in the fibres is called lignin, and you need to remove that lignin from the fibre to then make the fibre weavable, spinnable, to be used like a cotton fibre in essence. So that process is the bit that's improved greatly now. It's been quite.
Is it a very expensive process, and is it a dangerous process?
It depends which process you use. So to give you an idea, there's a company called Ceph, which has got a patented process, but there's also you can do it through steam, so you can use steam to do it, high pressure steam. You can also do it using hydrogen peroxide at 12% concentration, but then you're using hydrogen peroxide, which isn't a great chemical to use. So there are multiple different options. There are certainly people that have scaled. So Levi's did a hemp production run, I think it was about 18 months ago now, which was quite a high volume production, which is a 55%
of jeans, right?
Yeah, hemp, it's 55% hemp, 45% cotton, I think, all the other way around, but hemp cotton blend.
Amazing. Why do I feel like
it's a success? Sorry, Ollie. Was it a success?
Okay.
Yes, it was. I mean, so they're actually going full circle. The first original Levi's were made using hemp fibre.
1860s or something, right?
But then they realised
they
didn't wear out, so then they couldn't sell any more Levi's, so they switched to cotton, so they wear out, and then they could sell them more.
They were originally made for they're originally made for like the gold rushers, right? Yeah, that's what it was. It was like gold rush clothing, exactly. It was like what's it called? Work hard, work wet, work rough, and it lasts forever type thing.
It was workwear, wasn't it? Quick question here. Well, probably not such a quick answer though. From Kaval Tanner. Hope I've got the pronunciation correct. Apologies if not. Is the limitation awareness of legislation as to why it's taking so long for hemp to be adopted?
Hempcrete.
It's probably the awareness is the biggest barrier. The legislation's there, but I think the legislation allows everything we've talked about to be done. So I don't see the legislation as being a major barrier. It would be better without having to license hemp fields, but we are where we are. That's currently the stance. So I think that's not a major issue. You can work with it. I think the biggest barrier is probably awareness from both an investor's point of view, because it needs large investment. One of those plants is going to be around 15 million capex to build out. So we're going to build 9 of those. So we need 9 lots of 15 million as a starting point. So it's awareness in the right markets and to the right investors. And then it's also awareness to the end users as well, that actually hemp can be the viable solution. I mean, a lot of the presentations I get involved in, I start them with the title, The Solution, because it really can be the viable solution to multiple different sectors. They just need to understand it, and then potentially they'll invest in it, and then we can work with them to really grow and scale it. Because the more we can grow, the more impact we have on decarbonisation.
This is it. This is it. You know, I spent a lot of time in California, and the whole thing is about scalability, everything. And I hadn't really appreciated how they got prices and stuff like that. It's all about scalability, which someone explained to me very well. Somebody called Bernard Claude Mammon.
It's my dad.
It's your dad.
Hey, Dad. What's up, Dad?
Says, I've still got keep your family reunions off there. I've still got shirts I got from Dennis, or is it Denis, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Hemp shirts.
Yeah.
Hemp shirts. There we are.
See, hello. Listen, I just like the fact that the versatility, okay, the versatility and the innovation behind this plant is exceeding so much. You know, like so me and Jamie, I want to end the show on this because we've got 3 minutes. I might as well do it. So we basically built our house. Okay, you know, all the furniture and all that stuff. We know how to build it. The textiles, the fabrics, everything. We know we could do that. Electricity. Now, this is something which me and Jamie have been talking about. You know, you can build a solar panel from hemp, and you can build batteries from hemp, and you can basically power a village using hemp. It's a new concept, and it's being quite heavily discussed at the moment. But there's this compound out there called graphene. It's a carbon-based compound which they use in batteries, and they'll use it in solar panels, and they'll use it in quite a lot of this new renewable energy tech and whatever. And through some research, they've discovered that you can extract the carbon from from hemp through the process. You can extract the carbon which mimics this graphene. Now, graphene is mined. We all know that. It's never fair when people are, like, no one gets paid good money to be a miner anywhere in the world. It doesn't happen. Okay, it's not a good business. You know what I mean? It's not fun business. It's dangerous business. All right. So to mine this graphene costs about £2,000 a gram, and to grow it and produce it from hemp costs about $500 a kilo. So it works out something like 0.11 thousandth of a price in order to create what you need to create. Plus, it's 8 times more effective. So this is something which I've been discussing with Jamie, and I'm going to let him take the last 2 minutes on this. But it's the fact that you can build a house and you can power it using nothing but a plant that will not change the landscape of the world which we're living in, will only make us live better. Jamie, take the last minute 45 just to kind of...
And Jamie, what do you think about this from Lee Durnford? Maybe the trick is just to call it a carbon neutral block.
I think there is, and I think that there are quite a few people that are bringing products to market that purposely haven't mentioned hemp in there because of that natural reaction to the word still. And I mean, I think just touching on from Ollie's comment there as well, I think we can build all of these materials and products and still produce food from that hemp as well, because you've got the food from the hemp seed and the protein powder from the hemp seed. And again, for a plant-based protein, we've got to find those alternatives that are viable. The population on the planet's increasing. We can't support enough protein sourced from animals. We've got to look at these viable alternatives, so we can still be building the houses, but we can also be feeding people from it. And that's I think, again, that's just underlines the beauty of hemp, is it doesn't have to just do one thing. It can do all of these different things, improve people's human health, improve the planet, improve the environment, and give you something to live in as well.
It's really absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? And I've got to share what Lee Durnford's saying again, that the word hemp, puts a lot of people off. And I get that. I totally get that. And these 19 weeks has been really so educational. I hope we can start to reverse that. We are almost out of time.
It's been a great hour.
Oh man,
It's been a great hour.
It's been tremendous. Thank you for being a brilliant guest. I really, really do appreciate it. I know how busy you are. Thank you for all your fantastic comments. Ollie, great to see you looking so
Lovely
well.
to see you too, Russ.
And so enthusiastic as always.
Great day.
I'm back tomorrow at 11 a.m. here on Men's Radio Station, which is on air 24 hours a day. Until then, stay safe. Bye-bye.